Welcome to Scythe and Shield, a GrindExp Diablo 3 podcast. Hello, I am Dr J Dredscythe, and I will be leading you on this adventure through great discussions with great people on the larger topics going on in the Diablo 3 universe at the time. And yeah, we're gonna take a crowbar to that BattleTag. We're gonna bash it, beat it. Well, hopefully not kill people, but get to know people a little bit more. So with that, a little guest intro. Totally stole this from like so many people, but it works. Akarat, who art our savior, the light you are, may your holiness shine through us. Your will be done in sanctuary and elsewhere. Give us your love to know you still hold a place for us, and your wrath for those who shall be purged from this world in your blinding light. You are us, and in turn we are thou. Let the crusade march on. Huzzah! I welcome Leviathan to the show.
Hey, thank you. I like that intro. I might have to throw that on the Twitch, get a command for that or something. That's awesome.
Yes. I was like, wait a minute, I was watching the stream, like, I need an intro. Wait, I saw something the other day. It was actually Diablo 3ified from Kevin Smith's Batmanifying of the original Bible. Like, wait, I have to find that. Wait, where can I find that? So I went to Twitch. It's like I went to the Twitch page and it was there. It was like, oh, it has to be done.
It's awesome. It's gone through so many like iterations over and over and over.
Mm-hmm. So how are you? How's your lovely Crusader been over the past week or two?
Things have been going well. I mean, health-wise for myself, I've been a little sick, but because that meant days away from work, it's been a very good time for my Crusader because she's been gaining plenty of Paragon levels, lots of extra loot. So things have been looking very good. Just mostly these days in seasonal hardcore, farming T6 and just trying to scare up really specific versions of certain pieces of gear. That will help me hopefully push into higher greater rifts, because right now a lot of my progress is going to come from almost like 1% upgrades on a few pieces, but those 1% at such a high greater rift make a huge difference in terms of whether you clear the rift by a few seconds or if you fall flat on your face and you're just never going to make the time.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. It's at like the high 30s, low 40s. As far as greater lifts are concerned, like you just need that one little piece of gear, like especially if it's like a chest piece that's like rolled perfectly, except just like the wrong spell, like wrong ability. Like that's huge. Like that's upwards of 15% on the wrong ability that can make or break you.
Exactly, and it's funny too because I remember when Reaper Souls first came out, and a lot of those affixes, we were just starting to figure out their usefulness, like percent skill damage and percent elemental damage. And I've never been a huge math person, so those numbers to me just seem like, okay, it's added bonuses, but I never realized just how strong something like an extra 5% of holy damage could be in a build that focuses completely on that element. And it's really starting to suss itself out now that there are scaling difficulties that go beyond the content that the game offers. It really drives home the point that what you do to your gear, the way that you enchant it and move pieces around matters a huge amount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the whole lifesteal debacle. Like lifesteal percentage is like, I'm getting 3% lifesteal, and that was like, this is like classic days, and the blues were like telling us like, no, when you're doing like when you're get up to like this amount of damage, it like totally takes over as far as healing is concerned. But like the entire community was like, nah, you be playing us until like Archon came around, and like the CM builds came around, and then like Whirlwind Barb came around. Like, oh no, they weren't shitting us. They were actually telling the truth for once.
Those guys knew what they were talking about. What? It's like they made this game or something.
Yeah, right, something like that. So I think everyone has seen like elemental damage and ability damage and seeing, okay, wait, no, it's taking all the damage you're doing and just adding more to it. Like, if you're doing 500 and at a 20% modifier, you're doing an extra, what, 105? You're doing 100% more?
You're making me try and do math on the interview. I won't. So hard to do on the spot. I'm just like, well, and then you listen back later, you're like, dang it, I can't do simple multiplication or addition.
Well, it's typically what happens on the weekend because I do... quick tangent. I do imperial to metric to decimal basically back and forth in my head all week long because I do AutoCAD drafting.
Oh.
So we do imperial jobs and basically English units to metric, but we also have to use, sometimes we use fraction units. So I do numbers all week. So when it comes to like, if I do 5% more damage with 100%, how much is that? Oh yeah, that's just 5%. It shouldn't take me that long, but it does. It's so bad. But yeah, so in general, just like percentage of damages, I think the community has wisened up, and I think there's a lot more people. I think in general, I think this attests also to the popularity of Reaper Souls, even though there still are always those things that need to be fleshed out, of how many more people are actually sticking around with the game. Mm-hmm. You're always going to have that initial influx of the mass playing base, and then it's going to taper down. But I think a lot more people are staying around nowadays compared to Classic around this time.
I would agree with that. I think that's also a testament to the success of 2.1 as well, because at the time that Reaper of Souls released back earlier this year, yeah, the friends lists were flooded with people playing Diablo. And of course, as things go, people beat Act 5 and they try out the new content, and then they move back to Heroes or Hearthstone or whatever other Blizzard games they might have also been playing. But 2.1 just seems to have not only brought people back, but just made them stick too. And I think obviously something we'll talk about Seasons is just the right formula for getting people to get re-addicted to the Diablo franchise and want to continue to grind.
Yeah. That's Season has definitely got me hooked. My seasonal DH is definitely better than my non-seasonal DH. It kind of scares me. But like you said, we'll get to that. But before we do, we need to put you in the holy crucible frying pan first. So with that, so if this is your first time listening to Scythe and Shield, which hopefully it isn't, and if it isn't, welcome back. If it is, this is how this works. I'm going to interview our dear friend over here, Leviathan, which is going to be split into two parts. The first part will be just general questions I tend to ask of everybody, get to know them a little bit better. As well as the second part being, rapid fire questions retail to each interviewee. They have no idea what these questions are. So it's always it's always surprising and maybe even a little hilarious seeing what they have to say. And then the last part will be the main topic discussion, which will be Seasons, class strength, now that we have about a good month and a half of leaderboards to look at, as well as what is competitiveness to us as individuals, as well as to Diablo 3, and can we even basically quantitative it? I know I'm saying the wrong word, but can we actually measure it, or is it more in our heads than not? And just the leaderboards in general, and anything else we come up with. So with that, we'll mosey into the standard questions, and with that, let's get into it. So where did your name come from, and is there any history behind it?
Oh man, so there's certainly some history there. I've been playing games since shortly after I could walk. Basically, my dad was a huge gamer, so I got influenced by him very early on, and we used to play Nintendo, like Sight Bike and Mario and all those games back in the day together. And as the years grew on, he would get the newest system, the next gen system, if you will. So like when he got a PlayStation, I would watch him play some games, and then he would eventually hand it down to me once the new thing came out. So when the PS2 came out, I got his PlayStation. And he was interested in games that I wasn't super interested in. Like he liked a lot of the shooters, things like that. So when I finally got the PlayStation, I went and picked up Final Fantasy VIII, and that was my first real moment of playing a game kind of on my own, because I had done like some Zelda and things like that, but he was always guiding me through and playing with me. But Final Fantasy VIII was the first adventure I really took on my own, and that game has forever implanted its place in my heart as my favorite game, even though there were tons of like crazy flaws with it, like the leveling system and drawing magic and things like that, but that's for a different podcast.
Those flaws only make it that much more endearing.
Absolutely, right? That's like some of the things I take away from it now. I'm like, wow, that was really broken. I loved it. But within that game, there's a summon Leviathan, who you would draw off of. Oh, I'm so bad. I'm actually not going to remember where you get it from in the game. Tisk tisk. But he was just like the water god, and he would rain water down from these stones, and then would sweep away enemies on the battlefield. And it was just really cool at the time. I was looking for some kind of name as I started to go on the internet and create these accounts and forums and things like that.
AOL chat rooms.
Yeah, right? Lycos and all that stuff. Like all these things we don't even like remember or use anymore. Just wanted something cool, and Leviathan always stuck out. And there was also Leviathan from, oh my goodness, Thomas Hobbes, I think, wrote his philosophical thingamabob book titled Leviathan. I hope it's Hobbes. But in any case, the name kept coming up, and I was like, I'm gonna go with this. It seems strong. And an aside to that story is, of course, that some people who know me in the Diablo realm also know me as Katniss, and that's completely from the Ink Gamers side of things, because I had a account snafu where I made Leviathan and then forgot that I had made it, or forgot the password. Something kind of went awry, and when I tried to go back over there to start hyping things up for the release of D3, I completely couldn't get into that account. So I was reading Hunger Games at the time, and I was like, you know what, Katniss is just awesome. She's badass. Let's go with that. So now I have this split personality, or some people know me as one thing, and I mean, they're the same person. Like, they're the same, hardcore Diablo player forever and ever. But it's just kind of an interesting schism.
Yeah, you have a spare name. Like I don't want to be Leviathan today. I'll be Katniss.
Switch it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next question is, how old are you, if you dare? And what's your profession, work, study, all three?
Yes, I am 26 right now. I will be turning 27 shortly before BlizzCon. My birthday is November 1st, so I'm kind of excited to extend that birthday day to a birthday week, and have some parties and celebrations out in California with everyone too. So I'm looking forward to that. And my profession right now is a litigation paralegal. I work for a law firm in downtown Boston, and they're based out of California, which is kind of cool. It's actually not too far from where we'll be for BlizzCon. They're in Orange County as well. So yeah, I pretty much have, I went through college and I got an English major, an English bachelor degree, etc. And I thought law would be the thing that I would want to pursue, just because I like reading, I like writing, and I always like making arguments and trying to back them up with facts and things like that. But getting into working at law firms, at least the ones I've worked at so far, is really like soured me to the profession. And it's really interesting that a lot of the lawyers that you talk to all convince you to not become a lawyer. So that just doesn't ever seem like a good selling point for jumping into 3 years of law school and basically taking on a mortgage of debt. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do in the long run. I'm pretty happy with life right now.
They just don't want you to take their money. Well, there are cases which leads to money.
It is an oversaturated profession right now, though. I guess a lot of people are coming from law school but can't find actual jobs because so many firms are cutting back with the downturn of the economy.
Yeah, like lawyers. Well, I would say doctors, but you know what? With all the buildings I'm seeing, and more than not of them being like, radiology buildings, or this building, or all the urgent care facilities I'm seeing built, like, no, you're probably still safe to be a doctor. Probably you're probably even double safe if you want to be a nurse or RN or something like that. You're probably fine. Like, go through it, get it, be good, and you'll basically get what you're supposed to be paid for anyway.
Exactly.
There's openings about, but it's very good that that there's a lawyer, even if it's paralegal. I interviewed a paralegal. My life bucket list.
There you go. Check it off, right?
Yep. All right. So what was your first time seeing and playing Diablo?
So my first major encounter with Diablo was Diablo 2. Playing that mostly single player. I had a friend introduce me to it. His name was Edwin Sanchez, and we grew up in Hartford, Connecticut, and went to school together in elementary school. And he and I were always like big gamers. Like, we both got Pokemon at the same time, so we were always battling against each other. He introduced me to a lot of the other Final Fantasies after I got past Final Fantasy VIII. He was a big RPG guy. And so he told me that his older brother was playing this game called Diablo, and they were coming out with their expansion for Diablo 2 pretty soon, Lord of Destruction. So he wanted me to get into it so that we could play together. And I actually went back and played Diablo 1, the original Diablo, with him through LAN. And it was an interesting time because I didn't realize that there were, like, I knew about cheats because we had like Game Shark and things like that for the Nintendo and all that. But I didn't realize, like, in PC games, like, there was this thing like duping. And we duped the crap out of Diablo 1, like so many spell books and things. And it was actually a lot of fun. Which is kind of an interesting thing when you consider my opinion on a lot of the hacks and the cheats and things like that, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But for that to be kind of my first experience with the game it's almost ironic. It was a lot of fun with Diablo 1 though, and I definitely took D2 far more serious, especially after Lord of Destruction came out. I ended up leveling up to a level 99 Magic Find Sorceress. I had a pretty high level Barb as well. And that game for me was just a lot about getting into the community. I remember going to like third-party sites to try and trade for Oculuses and items and things like that. Skolder's Ires, like all those great items back in the day. And it was a lot of fun just to kind of meet people who were passionate about games, and that was my first real PC game. So yeah, that was how the addiction started.
Yeah. God, I'm trying to remember. You said Game Shark. I'm like, was it Game Genie?
Game Genie.
It was like random string of ZWYs, 4s, and 1s, and you see what you magically get. Yeah. But no, it was always it's always interesting how your views of honest gameplay change. We'll get into that. We'll leave it for where it's supposed to be. All right, so you actually answered question number 4 with your friend who got you into the game, yes. or at least was there at the beginning. So we'll skip to what has been keeping you going through all the years from when you started till now, as far as playing the game. Like, what's been the allure, so to speak?
I mean, I did take a huge break in D2. Like, I actually didn't play a lot after they introduced the patch that put synthesis, or is that the synergies into the game? So like when certain skills buffed other certain skills in the trees. I was kind of moving on to other games, and I was also moving on to like a different part of my life too, like going to college and things was taking the emphasis kind of off of sticking in my room as a high schooler and just gaming all the time. So I ended up playing more casual games like Rock Band and Smash Brothers, things like that, that you could do with friends, like sitting right there on the couch or in chairs with you.
That couch co-op.
Yeah, right. That if only we had that at that time, I could have kept the string of years going. But it was always a game that was in the back of my head because I love the idea of a long grind. Like for me, that's always been a thing that has an allure for me in games. And for Pokemon, it's like getting your characters to level 100 and then even still gaming it further because you can continue to level up stats. Like there's all this stuff that's hidden behind the scenes and starting to become more prevalent now that Pokemon has just become this insanely detailed game. I don't even play it anymore because it's like way out of my league at this point. I just don't have the time. But games like that, like Final Fantasy VIII, like there was also another mechanic there with Devour, which was an ability that Eden would give you, and you could eat certain enemies and continue to boost your stats. So like you even if you got to level 100 and you got all the ultimate weapons, etc., you could continue to improve your characters. And for me, that is Diablo. Like every time I log in, I can continue to improve my character, chase that one extra vit, that one extra strength, find that perfect piece of gear. So there's always that carrot on the stick. And I know some people really are soured by the idea that, you know, you get to a certain point of gear level and it's just going to be that 1% upgrade, that 0.5% upgrade. But that has always been what's pushed me further. And now, you know, with Diablo 3, it definitely did get to a point where I felt like, there's nothing to do now that I have the gear that's, you know, it's the 1% upgrade chance. But with seasons, like there's so much more reason, and with leaderboards specifically, there's so much more reason to continue that grind. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, definitely. With all that. And the last question of part A will be, what is your biggest hope, wish for the Diablo franchise going forward from Reaper of Souls and beyond?
I would simply like to see them to continue to support it, and I know they will. I'm hoping at BlizzCon, this is like super hope, but I'm hoping that we'll see the beginnings of what could possibly be, you know, the next expansion, but we'll see. But even the fact that there will be a panel there detailing, you know, building a new legendary item, to me that says, okay, more content, more things to chase, and that's mainly what I'm looking for in the game. You know, from season to season, from patch to patch, I just want more items to create more builds, more interesting builds, more endgame viable builds as well. Things that you can get excited about when you see an item preview or a patch preview and say, okay, I'm going to start theory crafting from now. Like, what is this set going to do to interact with this new shield that they're introducing into the game? What builds can I get from that? How is my gameplay going to change? And I think they're on the right track in terms of implementing all that stuff and on a good pace of it as well. So I just want to see that continue.
Yeah, I really feel that they're doing a good job. I have to almost make like a little mental note. I thought of something about seasons, but we have to wait till we get there.
Ooh. Coming attractions.
Yes. Alright, so we will now be leaving the first part and be entering into the best of times and worst of times segment. Now this I only have 7 questions for you. I couldn't come up with an 8th, but I figured, it only gives us more time to talk, so it all works out.
7's lucky too.
Yeah, so since you do play hardcore, there are 2 obligatory questions, and they start off. So with that, let's begin. Obligatory question number 1: what is your worst hardcore death?
Oh man! All right, this is. All right, I'll deal this out. This is gonna make me sound like such a noob, but I when I first started playing hardcore, it was Archon that kind of introduced me to play it, because he was streaming a lot of the hardcore self-found stuff back when there was still an auction house in D3, and it was a cool way to keep the progression, the journey of the game interesting, because it wasn't like you were jumping huge gear levels by being able to buy items out of the auction house. You were always just finding small upgrades or sometimes large upgrades if you got really lucky, but there was always, you know, each time you played, it felt like the drop rate system, even though it wasn't super rewarding, was still going to provide you with something to possibly upgrade or side grade your gear with. So I did that, and I was playing Barb primarily through vanilla Diablo because that was my favorite class at the time. And I got into Monster Power Inferno for the first time on hardcore, and I turned the monster power down like 0 or maybe 1, I can't remember, because I was just so scared. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is Inferno, this is hardcore, everything is real now, it's gonna get so scary. And I go through, I'm doing well, you know, rending things and keeping the life regen up, all that good stuff. I get into Cathedral 1, and there's one of those unburieds that's on the screen, and I see it, and I'm like, all right, these guys, you know, they can hit pretty hard, they do some damage. And he's swinging at me, he's taking about like 1/10 of my life per chunk. I'm like, all right, fine. I'm gonna kite him back a little bit. I'm not feeling like too good about this fight. And the thing in hardcore is that you always want to go back to where you've already cleared, because you know what to expect there. It's going to be safe. Unless you left some random mob that you forgot about. For the most part, you know what to expect there. But on this particular night, I had just kind of spazzed. I was, you know, still nervous, and ran to the right, and there was a door there, and I'm like, all right, I just open this door, and then I can put him in the hallway, put him in the door, and, you know, make sure that he's kind of stuck, if you will. Didn't realize there was going to be an elite pack on the other side of that door. Opened it up, and I was just so trapped. I think I took leap off my bar for the first time, and completely wish that I hadn't at that one particular moment. It was just such a bad, like everything was a fail at that point. Like no matter what I pressed, I was like, oh, I shouldn't have pressed that yet. Damn it.
And champ packs were baller back in those days.
Oh yeah.
Like they just looked at you and you died. Okay, obligatory question number 2. Item you hate you lost due to death.
Oh man. I have to think about that one. Probably, well, right before Seasons came out, right before 2.1 came out, I was playing my Crusader. And if you recall, they had those DDoS attacks on the Blizzard servers. And I wasn't really...
For like a week and a half.
Yeah, it was the worst. Talk about the worst of times. That was the worst of times. I couldn't play like at all, and I didn't realize that it was happening. So I think it was Saturday, it kind of started, and I had gotten disconnected once, and I was just chalking it up to my own connection. So I thought, all right, I'll play a little safer, just to make sure that I don't do anything crazy or get stuck in any bad positions. So I was trying to make sure I was never truly surrounded or standing in stuff on the ground, even though I could possibly tank it. And that this was at a time where I had just come back from a break on Diablo because I was getting pretty big into Hearthstone, and they had put in the gold buff, gold fine buff for that weekend. So I felt compelled to play, and then I got disconnected, and that was on my Crusader that I had rebuilt after dying for the first time on Crusader and Reaper of Souls. So it was a pretty long-standing character, and she had just found, before I took my break, Gerfalcon's Foot, which, if you recall, is the flail that takes away the resource cost for Blessed Shield. And it's really hard to come by, at least it was at that time. So I was so stoked that I could finally open up that Blessed Shield build. And of course, it's gone now. But luckily in Seasons, I've found a few, so... Okay,
so your hard work has paid off, and you've got
eventually. That was a painful loss, though, especially because it wasn't, I feel like in general in hardcore, there are those deaths where it's just like, it feels unjustified.
You feel gypped out of life.
Mm-hmm. Literally.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get a little lighthearted questions now. Which Crusader ability would you want in real life?
Oh, Steed Charge for sure.
Okay.
You imagine you're just like, I'm late for the train, and I know I have like 1 minute to get there before, and just like bust out this horse. People like, what? Like riding down downtown crossing of Boston, this busy like metropolis, and I'm on a horse.
Knocking people out of the way.
Yeah. Or drawing quarter, like bringing my friends with me, like, come on, we're going to make this train.
But it would be bad because it would be like Scorpion, like get over here, like Nailman. Oh god, no, too gruesome. Oh. But it would still be very Diablo 3. So I guess it fits in the end.
Right. You guys got injured, but you made it.
But it's only a paper cut. You'll be fine. What affix combo makes you just go, let's pony up and get the F out of Dodge?
Waller and Molten, because that's how I lost my first seasonal Crusader. So I have like PTSD moments for sure now, where whenever I see Waller and I see Molten, like I stream my games sometimes, so like if you watch me play, I will literally say to myself, this pack has Molten. Do they have Waller? Because every time I'll get comfortable and I'll forget. And then I get walled in, and Waller right now is like a crazy strong affix for some reason, especially on the blue champ packs. Where they just spam it. And I'm like, oh god, it's gonna happen again. No, it can't happen again. Not like this. Why?
The bad memories. You're rocking back and forth in your chair. Everyone's seeing it. Like, are you okay?
What's happening to him?
Get this guy a Coke.
Seriously.
All right. When you play with 9-ball, who carries who? Wink.
This question would have been interesting at the beginning of the season because he fell into his Marauder 6-piece set so freaking fast. I thought he was like sacrificing small lambs to RNGesus or something. I don't know. Every drop was just the perfect drop for him. He got the seasonal bow really early on. He got like the M6 super early on. He got the Bombardier rucksack, like just everything he wanted. He was just calling things out. He's like, I feel like a Unity today. And then, clear one rift and boom, Unity. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Please help. But these days, he, Destiny came out, so he took some time to play that. He also plays Warhammer, things like that. So I've been sneaking hours ahead of him in terms of game time, and upgrading over him. So now I would say I carry him.
But you're doing it only because you're a good friend, right?
Exactly.
Out of friendship. uh, um, what item absolutely refuses the job for you?
A good Frighter's Wrath shield. Like that shield, it's really interesting now that the shields are probably equally as important in Crusader builds as the weapon is. And it's always been tough to come by a good weapon just because of the way Kadala's gambling works. You can't gamble a specific weapon type. So you're in the whole pool of two-handers. But you can gamble shields, not necessarily specific shields, but obviously there's a weight there because Crusader shields are going to happen across your screen more often than not. But shields have so many freaking affixes that they can roll. So even if you get one shield that kind of has two things that you're looking for, it's going to be such a crapshoot because they might roll low or they might roll just not quite what you wanted, and then you try and enchant, and it's just such a nightmare. So I'm trying to look for a very specific Fighter's Wrath with a Wrath regen and strength and crit and some cooldown reduction, but all those things coming together has just not happened this season.
Yeah, it's the crapshoot of RNG is definitely not in our favor.
Not at all. Not especially on those offhands, those secondaries, because there's so many things.
But we play on anyways. And the last question is should I, being me, really stop being such a pansy and play hardcore?
Yes. 100% yes.
Okay.
Do it. Actually, you know what? Now I would say is the best time to hop in, simply because the biggest loss is gear, but at this point, gear is a little easier to come by, it feels. With Sheared Paragon, it's easier to re-level because you have those points available to you, so you get movement speed right away, some extra boost to, attack speed, things like that help the leveling process. And I mean, why not, It's time to live on the edge.
It's like, come... As I drop my Snapper cap. As they always say, come over to the dark side, we have cookies like that. Cookies. Wait, no, they're bad cookies. Wait, they're chocolate chip, cookies.
We'll give you the first couple of cookies for free, man.
And
everyone's eating them.
Yeah, and then you have to make your own afterwards.
That's right.
The hard knocks life. Alrighty, so you made it through. We are now done with part B.
Whew, okay.
You're safe.
I feel good.
So that will move over to the main discussion point, which is, again, seasons, but we're going to put a little different spin on it. Now, as I said before, we're about a month and a half into this season. There's a few things that people are generally talking about. The class strength, how certain classes have gone up, how some have gone down, how some are basically at where they've always been. The main builds that have come and gone, as well as the competitiveness, and how can you actually measure that, and how does that affect the balance of each class versus the other. And, leaderboards and anything else we manage to come up with. See how long we go. So I guess the first thing we could talk about is, I guess, just the general concept of seasons as they are right now. I feel that seasons right now I want to say seasons are good and they are built well, but they are not in a good place, and I say that strictly because of the early exploits with the bounty quests, like the Miner's Gold, Miser's Will, Matriarch Bones, and Jar of Souls. Basically, the no-kill or low-kill bounties that let people basically power level, and then get them instantly to Torment 6. Well, not instantly, you still get gear, but it expedited that process over what you would normally expect. And then you have all the people with the more current exploits that may have been fixed already. I'm not sure if it was, but the whole group invite and then group leaves, and then group comes back in and helps one person get like a high solo greater rift, so it kind of mutes leaderboard ranks for at least solo wise. So I think I would say I like the concept of seasons. The drop rates definitely do seem upped, and that's always a welcomed thing to, even if it's a placebo effect,
right,
to see. And it is interesting seeing all the abilities that you never use anymore, just to use them, even if it's just during the leveling up process before you get to like that level 61 ability that you're going to use forever and ever. But I feel like they still have a ways to go with the actual making sure seasons are have integrity to them. And this actually, and I say all this because what you said before about seasons, and what Josh Mascara said, they could do anything with seasons, and how they didn't really do anything to kind of prevent this. I think this first season, as many people have said, I think you as well as the other guys at the Westmarch Workshop have said, is that this is definitely a test season. They're kind of flushing out systems. They're, I guess, letting people break the game, quote unquote, to figure out what people are doing, where they're doing it, so they actually know where they have to go and look further into, like, are other bounties going to be the next one that we don't know about that players are keeping from us. And hopefully season 2 will be a lot more, how can I say, honest for us, the players, and leaderboards will mean more. What do you feel on... I know this is kind of a weird, wide range of where I went, but how do you feel about seasons and, what everyone is saying about them?
I agree with a lot of what you just said. I think one of the best words I used is integrity. Because coming into seasons, I feel like a lot of people had the expectation that this was going to be the true competitive, turning point for Diablo, because everyone's starting from that fresh playing field. Everyone's at level 1 at the same time, which is important. And we're all going to go through, and basically RNG is going to play some effect, but also player skill is going to play some effect too, because knowing what to enchant, when to enchant, how to manage your resources as they're scarce to begin with, and generally like when to put your character into peril to push into higher torments or higher greater rifts even for better rewards. All those things come in and are juicy factors to make like for a competitive, like great feeling season. And now we had some of that in season 1, but because of the things you mentioned previously, a lot of the curve of it kind of got broken. So I think that more than anyone has been saying all along, season 1 is certainly turned into kind of that test season. And I think that it had to. It was kind of interesting that you said that they almost opened the floodgates to see what people would do to kind of suss out some of those exploits and things. Because no matter what, you can be in PTR for a year and you'll find things, bugs, etc. But until it's real, I feel like you won't have as many people playing it for sure, and you just won't. People won't have that drive to really break the system because it's not real yet. But when everything is on the line and it's real leaderboards, real progression, real getting your name out there, everyone's going to suddenly bust out the exploits that they maybe were thinking about or maybe holding on to. So I mean, in a way, it had to happen this way. I think that it was unavoidable that stuff wouldn't get through that was a little broken, but it's made it difficult to play as a legitimate player. I've never touched any of that stuff, and have never wanted to. Like, I'm very big, especially because we had mentioned previously, like one of my first, brushes with death in Diablo was doing, duping and things like that in Diablo 1. But you get to a point where you realize that you're cutting out your own fun by doing those things. You're shortening the period of time that you're going to be on your journey to get to the best items, to get to those hard difficulty levels, to push yourself. Because you're making the game easier, but you're kind of diminishing the reward at the end of it. You're like, hey, I got this awesome rank, but I didn't even do it legitimately. Like, why should I feel good about this? I'm just pulling one over on everyone else, but I know in my own heart that, I didn't receive it fairly. And I think, I don't know, everyone has their motivations for cheating and for why they want to get their name out there. And I think now in the age that we live in with Twitch and gaining popularity by being at the top of leaderboards, which are very visible. You get more subscribers, more people coming to your stream, you can get ad revenue, etc. So there are some real life monetary reasons to do these things, but I kind of want it to end up being this altruistic place where everyone wants to come in, compete because they want to show that they're the best Diablo player, and not because, they want to get their name out there and benefit off of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm actually writing a note because I want to bring up another topic. So I want to do that one, and I want to do this one. Okay, so since you brought up... Now this is something I've actually been mulling over for quite some time now. Because there's actually... First of all, the phrase breaks down with Diablo because there is such a thing as hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
And with competitiveness and with Diablo being such a... For it being an RNG-based game, is also, if not more so, a numbers game. Even compared, especially compared to Classic. You have elemental percent damage, you have skill ability damage, you have your regular crit hit damage, and then you have all these multiplicative, or is it additive? Like, there's a lot. If you really want to get into it, there's a lot of numbers and how everything works as far as like Excel spreadsheets and a list of lovely fun stuff
Absolutely.
that you can get into. I mean, it can make a math major happy for like a full weekend trying to figure out like how their character actually works, like the nuts and bolts of it all. So the term, like, are you a casual player or are you a hardcore player? First of all, for me, that breaks down in Diablo 3 because you actually have a hardcore mode.
Yes.
So it confuses people.
Hardcore with a lowercase h.
Yeah. So for me, I've never actually liked the definition of being called or calling other people casual or calling people or being called hardcore. Because I think people always tend to go with the simple variable of time. Like, oh, like, that guy is Paragon 1000, so he just, like, no-lifed it. And the accomplishment gets dismissed because he dedicated himself and he dedicated time to getting Paragon 1000. Yeah, glow sticks before ROS. He was the first person to get Paragon 1000. And you get, like, the typical troll, like, oh, he no-lifed it, oh, but... When he started Reaper Souls, he was like, what, like Paragon 500? I think it was. So even though that kind of sucks, no, I think it was less than that. I think it was like 4, something like that. But even though that sucks, that's still, you have an amazing lead over everybody else. And that's still an accomplishment. And I think there's weird, like standard deviation, you almost break it up into, like add more math to it. Where I view myself as someone who knows a decent amount about the game. I know why the popular builds are popular. I know why the popular classes are popular. And I know what I can do as far as side grades off those popular builds to still try to emulate them, but work with what I find versus, striving to get like the perfect of perfect items. So I wouldn't but I can only do that with like maybe 2 hours a day between website work and spending time with my wife and just being a real life person, a busy adult with many busy adult things to do.
For sure.
So I don't want to call myself casual because then I make it sound like I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is my first time in Diablo 3, but I'm definitely not a hardcore player because I'm not dedicating what I feel would be the required amount of time to actually understand the class to a degree where I can make my own build and make it successful to where it becomes like the next M6 build or something like that. I'm somewhere in the middle, and I feel a lot of people are in the middle, but they just say, oh, I play casually, I play this. Yet I have people on my friends list that they play casually, yet they're rocking just as good, if not better, build sets than I have. And they're doing, greater if whatever, 40. It's like, so I feel that in a way, like, I know we don't want to spread this over to, like, Gamergate, like, this community hating on community, like, let's not go there. But I feel the onus is on us as the community to not be so quick to label things and just take things for what they are. Because I feel if I had to redefine casual versus hardcore in 2 titles, it would be like newbie or novice, if you want to take a more PC version, experience, and then I would just call it pro player. I mean, even though pro kind of comes with its own negative connotations, like, oh, he's such a pro, like, he gets paid and everything like that. I mean, you're always going to have that, like you said, Twitch and live streaming and YouTube and ad revenue. But if they have the time and they have the ability to, you know what? Celebrate it. As long as they're not cheating to get there, celebrate it for what it is. It only makes the community stronger, I think. And that's how I would do it. And that's just been something that's been gnawing on me for the past couple of months. Like, how do you feel about that? Especially now that we do have a competitive aspect in Diablo.
Yeah, no, it's a really important discussion to have, because there's kind of 2 things weighing there for me. One is the idea that you talked about time input into the game. And one of the things I was kind of sussing out from people in the Twitter community was the idea of what's going to be more effective, efficient gameplay or just having the time to play the game. Because if you play efficiently, I think that has a higher or a lower cap to it. Like, you can get to the point where you're playing super efficiently for whatever difficulty you're in, but someone with time is just going to see more drops than you. They're going to see, more time in the game, so they have more opportunity to build up resources and things like that. So you're doing the best with what you have as an efficient player, but someone with more time on their hands is likely going to, I feel like time is almost this infinite thing that, without knowing the length of the season, for instance, they kind of have forever to play. But if you have a very limited time, your efficiency is only going to get you so close to that player. And so from there, we can then kind of say, like, all right, well, what are the ways to define this whole casual versus no lifer experience? And I think those are such general brushes that we label people with. Like you were saying, it really is a spectrum, because you can almost have casual aspects to the way that you play the game, but that doesn't apply to everything that you know about the game, because you can be incredibly knowledgeable, have expertise in a certain class, but have a casual, in quotes, gameplay experience because you only play for a couple of hours per week. So I think it's way more complicated than people want to believe it is, and they try and break it down in order to, I guess, come to terms with it in their own minds of, like, okay, I'm a casual player, I'm never going to touch this guy because he's a no-lifer, and it makes them feel better about their time in the game and what they've accomplished. But I think we should try and redefine it. Like, we do have the power as the community to say, like, these are terms, they're kind of outdated. And like you said, we should really celebrate kind of the fact that people can go professional, again in quotes, playing something like Diablo, making it so their job is to wake up and turn on their stream and play Diablo for thousands of people for 8 hours a day, or however long they do their sessions for. That's something that is brand new, really. Like, it's still growing, and Twitch is still, like, becoming a bigger and bigger thing each year. And that should be celebrated rather than frowned upon and say, oh, this guy just plays forever, so it's not fair, blah blah blah. In the realm of competitiveness and the leaderboards, yeah, someone with more time is going to have more Paragon levels. That's going to give them a slight advantage, but RNG still matters, and competitiveness actually is kind of defined by the level of RNG that's in your game. Because something like a League of Legends, for instance, it's very not RNG. Like, the only RNG is what other players kind of do, if you will. So, you can get surprised if someone tries to gank you and you've never been ganked a certain way before. In Diablo, RNG is rife throughout, because you never necessarily can count on certain item drops. No rift, no any 2 rifts are really the same. So going in, I don't think in Diablo we want, like, static drops, like knowing I can get this from here. As much as people say they want it, I feel like it would make for such an uninteresting season, especially because you can just go here, I'm going to farm this, get this item, I'm going to go here, farm this, get this item, and your seasons would all look the same, really, once you find out what the most efficient pathway through them would be. And if every greater rift were a certain map that was set and certain mob spawns that were set, it becomes less about player skill, testing your ability to change as the circumstances change and to adapt and keep your character alive, and more about just memorizing the map and saying, all right, they'll go to the left this time because it's going to be more efficient to hit this elite pack, this elite pack. So you have to balance those levels of how much RNG you're willing to accept and how it determines the true competitiveness of, the leaderboards and the seasons, things like that. So it all ties in. It's really interesting that all that stuff ties in together.
Yeah, definitely. And you actually brought up what the original plan for Greater Rifts was, which was to actually have a static map with static mobs. And they said that it was going to, and even I think they said if there were shrines in there, they would be static too. So you would figure out the best routes. I mean, we all know too well. With I think the Barbarian right now is one of the classes that go around, pick up everything like old Whirlwind style, bring it to a Conduit Shrine, or really any class. Not to pick on the Barbarian. And you just farm up all the mobs, bring it to a Conduit Shrine, and rip them all down. And do like that. So I'm glad that even though the initial thought was maybe have something like that, because they felt they needed to have something static for a more balanced playing field for everybody, that they kind of did go the way they did. I'm actually kind of glad that people want them to actually go further and, rip the pylons out completely. So it's not like a Lucky Conduit Shrine on a Stone Singer on a zombie keep levels that gets that person in at an extra, 49 when they really shouldn't have gotten it because they didn't have the time.
Yeah, like aligning all those stars. And if you think about it too, like this kind of deal goes into a point that you have here with class strength, because you're not really going to be able to suss out like which class is truly the furthest behind if they're looking for all these certain ways to mitigate the things that keep them behind. A barb class in hardcore is kind of behind because they don't have that second life. But if they're, this technically isn't an exploit, but if they're conduit farming, that's kind of unintended gameplay for the competitiveness of what the purpose of Greater Rifts is. And it's not going to give, Blizzard the right amount of feedback in order to say, okay, barbs are lagging behind, how can we improve them? It really does all just tie in. And I think that the boon of seasons and of leaderboards is that we'll be able to determine, looking across the board, okay, Demon Hunters are in a great place, obviously. Crusaders aren't too far behind them. Wizards are doing well. Melee is tough in higher level Greater Rifts. We need to improve Witch Doctor pets, which they then went through and did. So I think there probably would be less reason, hopefully, to exploit and to want to cheat the system if they can remove some of those RNG things that motivate people to look for them, and just have it be like, use your class to the best of its utility.
Yeah, and now that you kind of segued into it, now there are certain things that, if there's any one good thing as, in real life as a person, I would say I'm good at, it's basically standing back and observing things, distilling information over a period of time and then trying to make it like a solid opinion about it. Now, with the way, I guess you could say the new way they're approaching class balance, which also factors into every aspect of the game, everything from rift clearing to greater rift clearing to how effective is the class and really how fun is the class to play on a whole. They're saying that, and they were kind of using the wizard as an example, because wizard is actually a very easy class to use as an example. When depth diggers were made, depth diggers, for those who don't know, they changed them up to where they have a legendary affix that says increase damage by your primary skills by 80 to 100%. Now that's actually very strong. It's very strong, especially if you want to up it with a Simplicity Strength Legendary Gem, which will get up to 50%. So you can have upwards of 150% primary skill damage on top of, any other ability percent damage modifiers you get on gear. So you can actually get very strong builds. And the wizard builds that were very strong at the time were basically Magic Missile Conflag, which was the fire magic missile along with Mirror Ball. Now Mirror Ball was a very interesting was and still is a very interesting offhand. It basically it could give you 1, but no one ever used the 1. It would give you 2 free magic missiles whenever you cast magic missile. So they kind of went through the math and it said, okay, so say your magic missile does 100% damage. You have a mirror ball which gives you 2 extra. So now for 0 cost, even if it did cost something, so for the cost of 1, you're getting 3. And then you put it through Depth Diggers. Say you got lucky, you got 100%. Now you're doing, technically, like 3 more missiles for free. So now when you cast 1, you're really technically getting the damage output of 6. And then you do Simplicity Strength, which adds another 50%. So it's like you're getting another, what, like 1.5? So you're getting, I know, we're doing numbers on the weekend.
I'm
so
just
you're going
in like, oh man, yes.
You're going from 1 to 3 to 6 to like 7.5. And then you're going, and then if you manage to get like magic missile on a few other items to get like another 50%, which would actually be a stretch, maybe you get like a 25. So you're getting almost like 8 or 9 magic missiles worth of damage before even elemental, or if they all crit out of magic missile, which is free. It doesn't even cost anything. It's just free. And they were going like, okay, with all those items, if we let Depth Diggers actually work with magic missile, it would break magic missile. Like, no one would ever, like, no one was using really spenders at that point. They would have no reason whatsoever to use spenders, because the damage output of the free spell would outpace the spender skills.
Absolutely.
And that was kind of their justification for not allowing signature spells, which also affected the Witch Doctor. Witch Doctor and Wizard can't use Depth Diggers. It just doesn't apply to them as far as a class. Now, I bring that up as an example because the DH with the M6 build, everyone's saying it's really overpowered and strong, which I'll attest to it is, but I'll add the asterisk, like in the baseball records, for home run records and all that kind of fun stuff, that the M6 build is very strong because it was a very well thought out set that works very well with the abilities, and it's relatively simple. I mean, all you need is the 5 pieces in a Royal Ring of Grandeur, a Bombardier's Quiver, Bombardier's Rucksack Quiver, and that's really it. You don't have to take the custom engineering to get that 5th century. If you really want to put the balls to the wall as far as damage output, then you probably will. Probably on a Hellfire Amulet if you get lucky enough to get that passive rolled on it. So you get like another passive in its place. But I feel all the outcries over DH are because the items are so well done versus other classes, where after even the monk with set revisions and it being much better, everyone's just crying for the DH to be nerfed, or the sentries to have health bars, which I feel would totally would totally flip-flop the build. It would be useless to put out sentries, I feel, at that point. So the overall thought is they're balancing classes through items. Like instead of like upping damage on an ability, like instead of like upping magic missile damage by 50% and not give us Depth Diggers, they would just rather give another item in its place, but not as strong, so to speak. How do you feel about that? Because I feel like if they go too far with it, then classes are going to be basically limping along on item crutches, and it doesn't fix the class itself until you get that item that has to roll well, and then you have to enchant it to make it perfect. I feel like if anything, it just adds time to your personal classes' gear progression, and it doesn't actually fix the true problem with the class.
Yeah, this is something that obviously has a lot of popularity in the community right now, so it's been discussed over and over and over as to how to address some of the class disparities. For me, I kind of like fixes through items, but I definitely understand that The issue is finding the items. It's always going to be, if you don't put the fix on the skill, which everyone has access to, you put on the items, which everyone doesn't have access to, then it could be a buff, but it doesn't feel like an immediate buff. So it's tough to figure out, is the game rewarding enough in order for them to put fixes to classes into the items? Because the whole, like you just said, the whole idea is that you have to be able to get those things in order to utilize them. I think what will happen over time, because being OP is all relative to the meta that you're playing in at the time. Because if they buff, witch doctors and give them this insane set in season 2 or insane item, everyone's going to roll the flavor of the season. And they'll be, forum posts like, oh my God, witch doctor is just so powerful now. No one will kind of focus on the fact that DH still has M6 and, it's still a really good class and a really good set, because they'll just be, the OP thing that will be on their mind will be the new thing. I think as we go through and as the dev team commits themselves to adding more items into the game, we're just going to end up with more options. And hopefully all the options aren't necessarily equal, but are tantalizing enough to where you have to make choices. And with that all being said, obviously it's a long run. You have to kind of be in it for the long run. I think we'll get to the point where it's not just about having, I need these 6 items in order to make my character work the way it needs to be the most efficient or the most powerful, but it'll be kind of what you find throughout the season, and being able to then say, okay, I found, this new set and it's awesome compared to the old, the cookie cutter of days gone by. Now I have a choice. Do I want to then still go for the cookie cutter and see if it's going to outperform this, or do I just want to subscribe to this set because it's comparable? I think we just have to kind of wait for more options, and hopefully they'll be salient enough to provide some of that interesting choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you actually touched on something I want to go back on. Now, say any class. I want to pick on any class. Say class X gets a set, as you said, and it makes them really overpowered. Like it's like the new M6, but it's for this class.
Mm-hmm.
And people is outcrying everything, and it's like everyone's going blah 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 blah, like nerf this shit to the ground, Blizzard. like down with the regime, like that kind of stuff. What's your opinion on Blizzard doing, I would say, moderate to major gear set item changes, like air quotes, mid-season? Like, what do you feel that they should do it? Do you feel that they shouldn't do it for the sake of, just let the seasons ride, that's why they're there, so we can reset them? Like, what do you feel about that?
I go back and forth, because seasons are such an interesting part of the game for us and for the developers, because they really exist as this realm where they can do anything. Like some of the things that we've thrown around on Westmarch Workshop have been like, have a season where you turn off the most popular set for each class. Like, take out Akans, take out Marauders, only have it so you can craft sets, and, you have to work with the unique legendaries that don't particularly provide a synergy, but maybe you suss something out and you find a crazy build that works with a Sky Warden and a Vigilante belt and, et cetera, et cetera. That's one way to just mix up the metagame and to see if there are things that they can improve upon based solely off of items that exist in the game. All of that said, though, I think there is merit to having a season that's consistent. So, you go in at the start, they introduce the new items they're going to introduce, and yeah, maybe someone finds something that works really well early in the season and the outcries come for nerfs and changes. But I think you got to let it ride, because, for instance, looking at the DHs again, everyone was kind of playing the old, the cold build for DHs in M6, and Atreyu being one of the best bows for that. But then, someone comes out and says, ooh, I have this lightning build with the brand new seasonal quiver, meticulous bolts, and now everyone's switching to that. So, if we would have changed everything right from the get-go when people were saying DH is too strong, who knows if we would even found that lightning build. So I think you kind of have to let the season progress as it may, for better or worse, just because making changes during can definitely affect some people who are saying, like, I'm going to dedicate myself to this season. Like for me, for instance, I'm at the top of the leaderboard for the hardcore seasonal crusaders sitting at rank 4, and if they change like anything that could possibly buff up a build that I'm not using that someone else is using, all of a sudden they can topple me from my position, and I could never seen it coming because I'm going into this season thinking that things are as they are. So I'm, making my decisions based on, all right, nothing is going to change. This is the metagame that we're playing in. This is how I'm going to, try and successfully make my way to the top. But, at some point, if things are truly, truly broken, I hope that they would step in and explain it far in advance of making the change, saying like, this is our philosophy. This thing, we introduced it and it just didn't turn out the way we thought it would. Coming, 2-3 weeks from now, we're going to make XYZ changes, and prepare yourselves for it, because the only thing that can really help mitigate a big upheaval within the middle of a season is information, just knowing what to expect.
Yeah, definitely. They got way ahead of that when they back with the critical mass, that lovely passive that us wizards enjoyed for so long. They got way ahead of that. I think it was like 6 months, like before Reaper Souls came out, that it was officially like axed. They said like, yeah, we're gonna do something to it. Not now, probably not for a while, but yeah, yeah, most likely bye. I'm like, okay. And there was never a big stink about it. I think that truly has always, like, whenever I think Blizzard has done something well with Diablo 3, it's always been with a well-informed, well-outlined, and most importantly, well put together back and forth with the community.
Exactly.
As far as changes were concerned. I think every time something has been done poorly, or has not been well received within Diablo 3 community, it was done kind of on a internal basis. Like, we did this quickly internal, we had people look at it, we tested it for about 2 weeks internal, here's a PTR that lasted all of about a week, and here it is, and then, yeah, shit just breaks. That's how you wind up with Error 37.
There you go. Oh gosh, flashbacks.
Yeah. Or, what was it? Like, 73 in Reaper Souls? They doubled it? Yeah, so I feel that I'm kind of along the same lines. Like if something's broken, like, kind of leave it. Hopefully it's not too broken, I would say. But also, to add to what you said, keep it, because the people who are not playing X class with X build, they still have a race to do. They still have a race against each other for the competitive aspect, or even just being competitive with themselves. Because I know quite a few people now that, even though it seems the leaderboards are a little illegitimate with all the exploits, they're still doing the leaderboards as a self competition. Like they log on, they say, okay, I'm going to do X amount of greater rifts at this level, I'm going to see if I can do it, just see if I can beat myself. Mm-hmm. Like self-motivation, which I think is like the best way to look at such a thing as competitiveness as a whole. Because if you can drive yourself, it almost doesn't matter if you're playing against other people or not. Because if you're doing it, you're going to do it to be the best you can, and if it's better than the other person, then it's just better. You're like, it's there naturally. So there's 5 other classes that wouldn't be affected, and there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of players that would be ultimately affected by these changes, because it would probably mean not necessarily an end to that season, like a quick end, a quick restart, even though that would be the most extreme case, but it would totally change the outlook and group up style for the leaderboards as well, for the 2, 3, and 4 mans. That it would change up entire group structures. And if you couldn't find a better group structure than what was there beforehand, then whoever was at the top of the leaderboard just stays there all season long as an eyesore to what went wrong. So I feel you almost have to kind of leave it in there, let the season play out. I mean, that's why they're there. They're like little snapshots in the game's history, and
exactly.
and the developers and the community just look at them, learn from them, and hopefully just go better.
Completely agree with that. Yeah, because otherwise you end up, I almost look at it as real, sports seasons. You wouldn't see the NFL go in and say like, okay, we're noticing that too many people are scoring from kickoff returns, so we're going to make it so that all kickoffs now you can't return it or something. Something crazy and drastic like that. Because in the middle of the season, if a team is building their special teams, around scoring those points, getting ahead of other teams that way, and kind of snowballing their leads, you take that away from them, and then that team goes like 0-8 for the rest of the season. I mean, that's so extreme, right? You never know what's going to happen with a change. But bringing it back to Diablo, even a change that they had like with the trial system, and people couldn't right away anyways make higher level greater rift keys that they were using DHs and things like that for before. If it ended up being that we couldn't get back to those high level greater rift keys, then whoever was able to kind of use those game mechanics early on, they cement themselves at the top of the leaderboard simply because they had access. So making, like, that's just one example of how making a change mid-season can really affect the final results, and you end up adding that asterisk to it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so we've talked, I think we've touched on all the subjects I think I wanted to get onto. But I think with leaderboards being the way they are, I think even if it's just more of a subjective more than an objective thing, now that we've gone, the 6 to 7 weeks into seasons, and after the community hollering and annoying Josh Mascara endlessly last BlizzCon at every interview. I think Flux asked him no less than 3 or 4 times during the group interview about seasons and ladders and seasons. How would you define competitiveness or the competitive aspect? And do you feel that it's healthy in Diablo 3 right now with leaderboards and everything? Do you feel that it will be there, like, now that it's here, it will be there for as long as they support the game? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't see them removing anything that they've added in 2.1. Like, I feel like all of the features that they added have only given more richness to the experience that players can go through as they play the game. And I think you have to look at what Blizzard's main priorities are by introducing this stuff. They want players playing the game, playing it longer, and enjoying their time in the game. And I think the competitiveness that gets introduced with features like leaderboards, like seasons, and whatever else they choose to introduce going forward only adds to those paradigms of what they want players to get out of turning on Diablo 3. So I think they've achieved their goals for certain, but can always improve on just the richness of the experience. Because for so long people were saying we want PvP. They just wanted another element to test their characters by. And this kind of introduces something like that. It's not PvP, but in a way, it's kind of like PvEVP, because we're all fighting the environment in greater rifts and things like that to compete with each other, or like you said, to compete with ourselves. It just gives you a reason for more of that gear collection, more of that gear improvement. Now that you have the best in slots for, all of your gear, what can you do with it? Well, you can test your character's upper limits. You can take it into the highest greater rift you possibly can achieve, and surprise yourself in some, heart-stopping moments where you're like, oh my God, I'm on the edge. Am I going to do it? That countdown timer's going, your heart's racing, every click matters at that point. It's such a unique experience that was not in the game previous to 2.1, really. So I think we're there in terms of adding competitiveness to the game, and now we just need to build on it more. Take some of those RNG moments like pylons and things like that, take those out of the game. It's only going to make the competitiveness stronger, because it's going to rely more on your character, what you bring into the Greater Rift, not what appears inside of the Greater Rift, that determines your success.
Yes, definitely. And with all that, I think we're pretty good on all the topics I want to cover. But since I have a little bit more time, we can add on here. So with that, let's just totally change it off and talk about BlizzCon.
Ooh.
So, for the viewers, Leviathan will be there with Nineball and Archon. So the full Westmarch Workshop will be out there in full force.
Yeah.
And I, as well as Beta, will be there. Or should I say Beta and I will be there.
Nice, the grammar.
the grammar check for the literature major. So, yeah, we're going to be there. And this is actually good timing for the interview, because this week the schedule and the map was released. And my dear friend, who I've never met yet, Ro, had pointed out that on Hull C there appears to be a big gap, that's there. Maybe there's a secret computer station that's set up. That, because I think someone put like the Hearthstone one and put it in there, and it fits quite nicely. Taking it from one side on the map, putting it there, and it fits.
Boy.
There's room. So I wonder what this could be. And then further rumor mill fuel was that after the opening ceremony on Friday, the main stage and the panel stage, which with this year with so many competitions going, there's one panel stage, which is massive, and then there's the main stage, which is the biggest stage they have there. And then everything else is competitions. There's a Hearthstone, there's a Heroes, there's a WoW, there's StarCraft, there's a Heroes of the Storm. Like every game I think has a competition going on. Like this is like, if you're a PvPer or you like esports, this is your BlizzCon.
Oh yeah.
But there's like a 2-hour gap for the panel stage, and there's a 2-hour gap for the main stage, right after the opening ceremony. And just remembering back from last year, they announced Warlords of Draenor on the main stage right after opening ceremony. There was something called World of Warcraft What's Next, and that was talking all about the new expansion. And when I see something like Diablo 3 What's Next and StarCraft 2 What's Next right after the opening ceremony on a Friday, even though I may be like letting my heartstrings flutter a little bit too much, I really want a Diablo 3 expansion, and I really want a StarCraft 2 expansion. Like, I really want that StarCraft 2 expansion. I want as I was saying before, I want Protoss to come back, take back Ire, and like incinerate the universe. Just take it all back, kill shit, tell the Zeal Naga to fuck off, and just have a good day. And I think even though everyone kind of has a consensus that it still feels maybe a little too early for a Diablo 3 expansion announcement, if it's not now, then it's around this time next year, which would feel too long. So just announcing it and maybe just a bare concept of it, along with more information on like future seasons, feels right, I would say. So what are your hopes and aspirations for BlizzCon this year?
I've been trying to do a lot of theory crafting, if you will, of the possibilities at BlizzCon. And if you take into consideration that they chose to announce the axing of Titan, and that having that no longer being a thing that they're working on, it seems to pave the way for an introduction to a brand new game. And we know that they've been hiring talent. We know that Jay Wilson is hiding in there somewhere, and they're bringing in new team members pretty regularly. A very heavy recruiting period for Blizzard employees right now, future employees. So I would suspect that this was the same place that they introduced Heroes for the first time last year, and we got the Warlords expansion too. I would not be surprised if we saw a brand new IP, and we also got the Legacy of the Void unveiling. But people have also been saying too that because so much of the Heroes staff is ex StarCraft 2 staff, that Legacy might actually be a little bit behind. So maybe we'll see more Heroes. Maybe we'll see Diablo. I'm not sure, but you have to look too at the places where Blizzard chooses to do their major announcements. Like Hearthstone was unveiled twice, basically, at PAX East with the original game, and then the Nax Ramus expansion that happened at PAX East. So that could be another venue where they say, hey, we're going to release a big announcement at PAX. They also do some stuff at Gamescom, which is later in the summer. But I feel like that would be far too late for a Diablo expansion if we're thinking more Diablo-centric for an announcement there. So I would say it's either going to happen November or at March, February PAX East timing.
Yeah, there's definitely so much theory crafting you do. And it's almost all for naught at this point, looking at the calendar, seeing how it's October 11th and so 20 days, and we're going to be on flights if you're going really early like I am to California, and just be there in the atmosphere of all the Blizzard nerds and cosplayers, and just be at home for a couple of days with your fellow players and everything else.
So excited. Like,
it's gonna be. I was even smart this year. I got a non-stop flight there. Just 6 hours of just flight.
Just get
it
done.
Sleep on the plane.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, like, no matter what they introduce, we're going to be totally stoked. Like, they could honestly say, like, we have no new announcements, and everyone's just like, yeah, BlizzCon.
it's like, yeah, I get to play the game.
Right? It's gonna be the same as it was when I left my house. All right. but
at least it'll be on a better computer. I've never seen graphics this good before.
Exactly. I mean, we could even see something as simple as the next content for patch 2.2 or whatever the next big update will be. Because one thing I've been harping on that hasn't seemed to gain a lot of weight, but it seems important to me, is that they kept talking about patch 2.1 as the first content update for Reaper of Souls. So to me, it sounds like they're going to have multiple content updates, which is no small feat for, going between expansions. You essentially think of it as gaining more bang for your buck, because we already shelled out however much we paid to get Reaper of Souls. So any content patch update we get is basically just like making it so that your dollar per experience just decreases further and further. So you paid basically less for more.
Yeah, and the team has always done well with the content expansions for Diablo 3. Like, each one, like, even in Classic, like, the Paragon system was a big change. Monster Power was definitely needed for the vast majority of the player base that just couldn't do Inferno, straight up. Like, but get them in there so they can at least have a better chance of getting items, or at least getting more gold so they could do more in the auction house. Whatever your sentiment on the auction house was, at least it helped players actually get gold to do something. But like 2.1, like, when you really think of how much it brought in, like, it almost began rivaling the size of the expansion. like yeah, it didn't bring in a new act with a new end boss, but you know what? It brought in seasons. It brought in ladders. It brought in seasons. It brought in leaderboards. I keep on interchanging them now.
Of course.
I blame it all on Flux. Again, that interview, he seasons and ladders interchangeably. So it brought in seasons, brought in the leaderboards. We knew from that point on we were going to get additional seasons, which had additional new legendaries, season specific, that were going to go into the item pool. The class changes that were done were extensive. All legendary items which had no purpose whatsoever were actually given a purpose, which helped change builds. And the whole token system, like Greater Rift tokens, and how Greater Rifts and how the keystones, it worked interchangeably, and legendary gems as well. Which is quickly becoming like one of the biggest important things you can do to customize your character. I mean, that's a lot of stuff to put into a patch, have it work well. And just knowing that they're going to be introducing more legendary gems, they're going to be introducing more legendary specific items for seasons, as well as, I think us as a community, we're at a point where we have no idea what they're going to give to us, because seasons and leaderboards were like the last things that we were asking for from the old days of Diablo 2.
Right.
Where like if someone said, okay, what do you want in Diablo right now, I'll be like, I don't know. Because there's no precedent anymore. We have everything that we had with the old game in this shiny new package, with other new interesting things, with a new engine and everything like that, etc., etc. I almost don't know what I want. It's like, here, Blizzard, here's a silver platter, just lop something on there and I'll eat it.
Right.
I feel like we're kind of at that point. So whatever they do introduce, we know it's going to be new. We've never seen it before. And I kind of like that. Because it's going to be a surprise. Like, I'm actually going to be able to be surprised for once.
Mm-hmm.
And not going off all this speculation, because no one knows what they're going to be giving us.
I honestly would love to see, I won't go too long into this, but just like a bounty system overhaul, actually. Because like we were speaking about when we first started, there were some of those exploits, so they had to change, the Miser's Will, just disable them actually. But it seems like a really good time for them to say, all right, in season 2, we're adding a new slate of bounties. Bounties are going to work like this now instead and offer these sorts of rewards, etc. Because it seems like a thing that was introduced to add, some replayability of all the different acts in order to get us kind of exploring places we weren't going into. But there's so much more that it could do with it. And I think that might be the future of a lot of Diablo, is just adding features to things that exist now and making them bolder, richer, better, harder, faster, stronger.
Mm-hmm. No Jarvis. Yeah, I definitely agree. I felt like that was an issue with D3 Classic that plagued the team, and it was only exasperated. Yay, big word.
Ooh, I like it.
That was unfortunately done every big content patch. Like the Paragon system was excellent by itself. The Monster Press system was excellent by itself. But one system fed into the other one, I think, a little bit too well, or sometimes either too well, and it wound up being like the rich got richer, the poor got poorer. And it was because Diablo 3 shipped out as this nice looking box, and they were trying to add to it, but the boxes weren't all the same shape, so they didn't fit nicely into this package. So you had it was okay, it was workable, but it wasn't the most pleasant thing to play or kind of work with.
Mm-hmm.
But now that they made the change to the Paragon system, and now that they changed the difficulty system at its base, rather than having a base difficulty and a monster power on top of it, and streamline a lot of these systems to where they're almost integral part of the core game, rather than just being, additions you get down the line. I mean, even adventure mode, even though you have to unlock it, it still was inceptionalized from the very beginning, so it is part of the core game.
Right.
So they can much easier add on to it, and it wouldn't really break adventure mode altogether. It would just be further extending it. I think that's what you were going towards, and I love that, because I love when you have a good system in play and you can just add on to it to make it, enrich it, make it better. Because who knows? I mean, they could add it to where, and I would love this, if you did like a full 5 act clears, like Tyrael looks at you and says, like, go here, like go back to like one of the random bounties in like the act, like the last act that you clear, and there's a disturbing force there, and you just go, and lo and behold, like you have like a free Ubers portal waiting for you. And you go in and you have a free Ubers, like you don't have to get the keys, and you just go in. Like that would be elevating bounties from not only bounties of killing all these lobby demons to, oh no, you killed all these demons and everything, now the big baddie wants to come in and take up where all the other ones died. You go in, it kind of, I would think that kind of harkens back a little bit in a way to the old style Ubers. Like actually a new evil walks the earth. Like yeah, a new evil walking the earth because you killed everything else.
That's actually really cool. Yeah.
And then you go in there, and that would actually make getting Hellfire amulets or rings a little bit easier. But you would enjoy the process because you'd be doing all the you getting keystones, so you could actually have do rifts to get your greater keystones. You'd be getting all the craft mats you need along the way. You'd be getting all this gold and experience. It would just be like the cherry on top at the end of doing all these bounties throughout all the acts. And I could see myself doing that if that was the option. Another thing would be, again on bounties, would be, why not put the key wardens as bounties?
Yeah. That's prime. That's easy, right? That's like low-hanging fruit. Make those guys there so you can accomplish 2 things at once.
I mean, they're already paying their asses to begin with, so just make them a bounty. Like, kill like 150 things in the Oasis, go after the Key Warden, and actually make them points of interest, because I feel at this point not a lot of people know about the Hellfire Amulet, because they don't understand, okay, Hellfire Amulet is gotten through organs, which are gotten through Hellfire machines, which are gotten through keys, which are gotten through wardens. It's like 5 levels of knowledge, like 5 steps that you have to do with like 4 levels of RNG. And people are like, huh?
Scratch your head, yeah.
So I think it would help also educate the community on where to get certain things at the same time. So just those 2 little things could be awesome little additions.
Yeah, I don't know how much more time you want to put on this topic, but one thing I was even thinking about too, similar to your idea of the full, Act 1 through Act 5 bounty clear, if you are looking at the idea of unity, like the 2 unity rings and the follower can't die token, and a lot of people are kind of, smashing their head against the wall trying to get the rings or the follower token, whatever. What if there was a way that if you completed every single bounty in the game that you're currently in, that last cache, that Haradra cache, has a percent chance, whatever amount seems to make sense, to drop a unity because you unified all the bounties. You cleared them all, and now, boom, out of this cache, you could probably get a unity over time. There's so much they could do with it. That's just like a rough off the cuff idea, but like, again, just low hanging fruit that I think they could definitely expand on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even the way the bounty bags work, it's like, why do the bounty bags have to be specific to the act? What if you just went in, cleared an act, and you just picked a bag from a menu, and the bag just listed what it had a potential to drop as a legendary? So you could actually go to do Act 3, but you could go for an Act 1 contents. I won't say a bag, but I'll say contents in the bag. Or you can do Act 5 if you just want to change your scenery, but still go for Act 1. Or you can do Act 2 and go for an Act 5 bag if you're going for the Hell Trapper and all that kind of fun stuff. It's like they could expand it so much more with all the ideas. And it's not just limited to the bounty system, it's also, rifts could be expanded. Greater rifts could even be fixed and tweaked and expanded on. So
for sure.
Yeah. So we have talked at length on everything, and I'm so pleased that we did. We got everything aired out. I feel better now. I feel like I can breathe.
It's like I feel like I'm about to leave the psychiatrist. I got my dose of, all right, how does this make you feel? Okay, take 2 of these and see me next week. See me at BlizzCon.
Yeah, definitely. So with that, is there any other things that we may have missed? I know I said we went over everything, but little last remnant fragments.
I think we're in a really solid place. Like, I feel like, the game as it stands right now is as strong as it's ever been. Like, everyone that I talk to is very positive about it, positive about the future of the game, and looking forward to what they do next. Like you said, they could go anywhere. We don't even know what to expect. So I'm just really stoked for the future, see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so before I close the show out, where can people find you, talk to you, lovely stuff, plug away?
All right, so like you have been saying along the way, I do a couple of different podcasts. One of the main ones I do right now is Westmarch Workshop, and that's affiliated with Blizz Pro. So you can, add on Twitter, you can add Blizz Pro, which is BLIZZPRO. You can add Westmarch Workshop. We have our own Twitter account now, which is the WM Workshop. I'm on Twitter myself as SA Stewart 111, and I'm also trying to really get gung-ho about streaming on Twitch. So I've been doing that somewhat regularly, but hoping to almost make it a daily thing going forward. So you can find me there at Leviathan 111. And those are the best places.
All right. Well, it was certainly a pleasure to talk to you this Saturday afternoon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And Archon's the last one.
The elusive Archon. Good luck tracking him down.
Yeah, I'll try. So yeah, you can find this and other Scythe and Shields on our website at GrindExp.com. You could also get in contact with us, leave comments, feedbacks, whatever you want to do, through the website or on our Twitter at grindexp.com. Or if you, if you're at work and work filters are giving you issues with the website, but somehow, strangely, you can get to YouTube, you can find us at GrindExp on YouTube. And you can find us on iTunes as well. Just search GrindExp. You'll get all 3 of our lovely podcasts, which are Grindcast, Scythe and Shield, and The Movie Ramble. And yeah, so that's about it. So thank you again for what is your double header of interviews.
Right on. Thank you.
And we will see you in a couple of weeks before BlizzCon with another interview. Have a good night, folks.